On the 1st of June 1944, a coded message crackled across the airwaves from the BBC's French service into occupied France. It was not a complex cipher, but a simple, chilling line of poetry. The moment of battle is approaching. Across the country, in cellars and attics, ordinary citizens huddled around their radios, their hearts pounding. This was the signal they had waited 4 long years for. While the world's attention was fixed on the massive Allied armies gathering in England, an invisible army was already in place, hidden in plain sight. They were an army of shadows composed of teachers, farmers, railway workers, and students. They were the French resistance. The story of D-Day is often told as a saga of grand armies clashing on blood-soaked beaches. But that is only half the story. Before the first Allied soldier set foot on the sands of Normandy, this secret army was already fighting a brutal, clandestine war. A war of sabotage, espionage, and sacrifice that would prove absolutely critical to the success of the largest invasion in history. This is the story of how that shadow war paved the way for D-Day. To the Allied High Command, the French resistance was a double-edged sword. By the spring of 1944, their numbers were estimated to be around 350,000 active members. But this was not a conventional army. London's Special Operations Executive, the SOE, believed that only about 100,000 of them had serviceable firearms. And worse, only a mere 10,000 had enough ammunition to sustain more than a single day of combat. They were a force of immense potential, but also extreme vulnerability. The Allies knew they couldn't be used for frontline assaults. Instead, their true value lay in sabotage and intelligence, in becoming the grit in the gears of the German war machine. Operating from the shadows, they were tasked with a mission of 1,000 cuts: to disrupt, to delay, and to disorient the enemy from within. Their battleground was not the open field, but the railway lines, the telephone exchanges, and the country roads of their own homeland. Their war was fought under a series of ingenious color-coded plans. The most critical of these was the Green Plan, targeting the arteries of the German army, the French national railway system. The Resistance Fair, a covert network of French railwaymen, became the masterminds of this operation. They knew every track, every switch, and every schedule. Their methods were both brilliant and brutally effective. They orchestrated attacks to blow up trains as they passed through tunnels, making recovery operations a nightmare. They expertly diverted German troop trains down the wrong lines, sending them on pointless journeys across the country. Around the city of Dijon alone, 37 separate railway lines were cut, grinding German logistics to a halt. In one spectacular instance, their sabotage caused a traffic jam of 51 German trains backed up around Lille, creating a perfect stationary target for Allied bombers. The strategic impact was immense. By crippling the railways, the resistance forced the Germans to move their troops and supplies by road. This was a disaster for the resource-starved Wehrmacht. By 1944, Hitler was desperately short of fuel. Every gallon burned on a French highway was a gallon that couldn't be used by a Panzer tank in Normandy. To compound this, the resistance initiated the Tortoise plan. It was devastatingly simple. Scatter heavy tacks and broken glass on major roads. With rubber in critically short supply, a single flat tire could immobilize a German truck for hours, creating bottlenecks and easy targets for Allied fighter bombers. While the Green Plan severed the arteries, the Violet Plan attacked the nervous system. French telecommunications workers, loyal to the resistance, systematically cut key landline cables across the country. This simple act had profound consequences. It forced German commanders to communicate by radio, sending their most secret orders through the airwaves. And listening in were the Allied codebreakers at Bletchley Park. Every message the Germans were forced to transmit was a potential intelligence victory for the Ultra program. The resistance was, quite literally, making the enemy talk. Beyond sabotage, the resistance was the eyes and the ears of the Allied invasion force. Their intelligence gathering was as ingenious as it was daring. In Normandy, workers in local laundries became spies. By identifying the unit insignia on the uniforms they washed, they were able to provide London with an exact breakdown of the German divisions stationed in the area. The railwaymen of the Resistance Fair did more than just blow up tracks. They were master intelligence analysts. When they were told that 84 separate trains were required to move the elite 12th SS Panzer Division, they correctly informed the Allies that the unit was at full strength. This stream of information had a direct and deadly impact. On the eve of D-Day, the British 6th Airborne Division launched a breathtaking glider assault to capture the bridge over the Orne Canal, later known as Pegasus Bridge. It was a mission of pinpoint precision, a key to securing the eastern flank of the invasion. The critical data that made that daring attack possible, the exact layout of the defenses, the guard rotations, came directly from members of the French resistance. They had paced out the distances, drawn the maps, and delivered the intelligence that guided the gliders to their target. As news of the Allied landings on June 6 spread, a wave of open rebellion surged across France. As one resistance leader declared, "The underground resistance is over. Open resistance begins." But for one of Germany's most feared combat units, the war with the resistance had just begun. The 2nd SS Panzer Division, known as Das Reich, was a battle-hardened force of 15,000 men and over 1,400 vehicles, infamous for its brutality on the Eastern Front. Stationed in the south of France, they were immediately ordered to race north to Normandy to throw the Allies back into the sea. They expected the journey to take a few days. They had not accounted for the French resistance. What followed was a masterclass in guerrilla warfare in delaying tactics. The resistance, coordinating with dropped SAS teams, launched a relentless campaign of harassment. Near Châtellerault, they provided the intelligence that led Allied aircraft to destroy 11 entire trains of petrol, the fuel designated for the Das Reich division. Near Souillac, in an act of almost suicidal bravery, a small group of just 28 resistance fighters managed to hold up an entire column of the division for 48 hours. Almost all of these men were killed, but they bought precious time. Frustrated, humiliated, and bled at every turn, the Das Reich division lashed out with savage cruelty. On June 9th, in the town of Toul, they rounded up and hanged 99 innocent men in reprisal for a resistance attack. A day later, on June 10th, they committed one of the worst atrocities of the war in the West. They surrounded the village of Oradour-sur-Glane, systematically murdered 642 civilians, locking the women and children in the church and setting it on fire. It was an act of pure evil, born from the frustration of being thwarted by an army of shadows. But the resistance did not break. The attacks continued. The result of this combined campaign of sabotage, ambush, and Allied airstrikes was a strategic masterpiece. The mighty Das Reich division, which should have been at the front in days, took a staggering 17 days to reach the Normandy battleground. They arrived 2 weeks late, exhausted, and having lost a significant amount of equipment. The absence of this elite, battle-hardened division during the most critical early phase of the Normandy campaign may have been one of the decisive factors that allowed the fragile Allied beachhead to hold. The price for this victory was immense. Thousands of resistance fighters were captured, tortured, and executed. For every German they killed, the Nazis exacted a terrible revenge on the civilian population. But they never stopped fighting. Even the Allied commanders who had initially been skeptical of the resistance's true value could no longer doubt their courage or their impact. From the intelligence that guided the first gliders, to the sabotage that kept entire panzer divisions off the battlefield, the French resistance had proven themselves to be an indispensable part of the Allied war effort. They were the invisible fourth front of D-Day, an army of ordinary people who chose to fight back against impossible odds. They fought not in the open, but in the shadows. They fought for their homes, their families, and their freedom. And in doing so, they helped ensure that the dawn of June 6, 1944 would not be another false hope, but the true beginning of the liberation of their country and of Europe.